Hello. Just gonna wait for a few seconds. I'm gonna open up my green tea. Much green tea. All right. So give a few seconds for anyone joining here. I know we're launching right on time. So say hi when you are in, so I know who's here. Pretty excited about this. This is a long time coming for me, I think. I've been in work on my own kind of approach to personal development for, close to maybe 7 or 8 years now. And it started out with being a dreamer with his own daybooks. Like, I'll show you one right here. Like, I would fill up books like this and just kind of practice the stream of consciousness ideas of allowing my self-expression and the trust in my stream and allowing the flow to happen. And it was interesting because I tended to be more of the philosophical kind of trying to figure things out, trying to understand, trying to compartmentalize and sort and organize all of the information that was in my brain. And over time, it would be getting closer and closer to something that I felt was substantial and ideas that I actually wanted to share. But then I hit that wall in myself of this fear of sharing my ideas, like this fear of being too much, this fear of that my ideas could be somehow dangerous because they broke so many rules. They disregarded a lot of traditional psychology, and but basically I was just scared of my own potential, and that's what hindered me from actually sharing my ideas. And then also coming out of this invisibility to becoming visible was something that was a journey of development and trust and experimentation. Oh, hi Ashley, thanks for joining. I hope you get some good juicy value out of today's live. So 8 years I was chugging away, and I can show you like some of these pages in here, just to give you an idea of like the scope of my work, like what I was doing. And I didn't know necessarily what I was doing, but just to give you an idea, they're very kind of like philosophical, spiritual, but trying to just understand myself, understand my mind, understand the big picture topics that we kind of talk about, but don't really have a grasp on. I feel like we don't understand what these things are. And so, yeah, give me some comments, Ashley, or the other people that are on. Say hi if you're on. Of like, what kind of personal development, self-help stuff have you done up until this point? Are you book readers? Do you go to seminars? Do you have coaches? Do you watch YouTubes? What is your personal development like? Like, what do you do for your own personal development? Just so I can get an idea of like where you guys are coming from with your journeys, and so I can kind of compare it to mine. But for me, I come from a very agnostic side and a very skeptical side. Religion was kind of forced on me. Judaism, going to temple, having a bar mitzvah, it was very much like I had to do it. There was no choice. So there was a general distaste with religion. And so I was agnostic to this like kind of belief of God, or that God exists, or what the hell Is it all? What's the meaning of life and all of that stuff? And so after that, when I like kind of graduated college and I started doing therapy, and started really diving into my pain and to my regrets and my fears and where I felt hindered in my life. I started to approach spirituality and read more stuff like Ram Dass and Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And that gave me this like kind of access point for my own spirituality of like understanding what love was in a very clear sense, what presence was. And on the flip side of that was this like philosophy. Like I would really I love the personal development of philosophy and reading philosophical texts and these thinkers and these philosophizers of past generations that are trying to explain or espouse these big picture topics. That's what really got my mind all the gears going in my mind, because it inspired my own like, oh wow, never thought about that before. Oh, that's an interesting insight. That's an interesting realization. And I kind of got addicted to those like realization highs of like having an insight or realization, and like I've just leveled up and I feel amazing. I feel like I just left something behind, and I'm like, giddy on the realizations. Books, research online and libraries, people, connections are the best. Soul connections are awesome. Networking like crazy for coaches and mentors now. Awesome. So I was doing my own inner work during this whole time and doing my own inner research and experimentation on generating my own results of self-empowerment, of like feeling better, feeling more at peace, not being able to meditate for 5 minutes to meditating for 5 minutes to meditating for 10, 20, 30, 40, like practicing and seeing what works for me, what didn't, what resonated, what didn't resonate. And so we all have this kind of journey, but for me, there was this like extra work that I was doing on a synthesis of like, synthesis being like this understanding and this like distillation of like, what is similar in these things? What is different in these things? What are all these things pointing to that are all the same? How are they approaching it from this angle versus this angle versus this angle on all the same thing? And we all use these words that are similar but different. God, source, universe, inner being, higher self. But we're all saying somewhat of the same thing. And I noticed that, I saw that, I felt that we're all speaking our truth, but from different angles, different perceptions, different experiences. And so my work of like how I used my processing power to a certain extent of my imagination, of my mind, was really to like, okay, there's some fundamental teachings here that each of these spiritualities are teaching or pointing to. There's these fundamental big picture questions that these philosophers are trying to get people to think about because they're valuable in some extent. And then there's this science that's trying to go into the microscopic level of atoms and the atom bomb, and then also the bigger, like traveling the universe kind of science and everything that science is. And what I started to realize, especially with the thematic kind of explorations of my life, of noticing that when we're children, we're in full imagination mode and it's playful and and we're full, theta wave imagination. And as we grow older, we're told to draw this line between our make-believe and reality and leave make-believe behind and stay in reality and grow up and all of this stuff. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. And there was some part of me that held firm to that make-believe magic of childhood, but also became susceptible to life, public school challenges, social life, anxiety, hormones, but there was still some aspect of me that remembered that magic and kept that with me, that suspension of disbelief, or the magic of childhood and what that means. And so a huge aspect of how I kind of teach is that we draw this wall up between reality and make-believe. And it's all about coming out of our reality and approaching this wall that's keeping us from our power, from our imagination, from our liberation, from this magical power, our magical abilities that are innate to us, and coming back to that. And so when I started to see this and synthesize all of this information, I started to see in my computer, my consciousness computer, that we were conditioned by the public school system to departmentalize, like a bureaucracy, like government, like business, to departmentalize our fields of knowledge into separate silos of information. And so I'm a big picture thinker, and so I zoomed out as far as I could in this sense, and I noticed that there was the science silo, the philosophy silo, and the spirituality silo as the expression of left brain, connection, and right brain. So does that make sense? So left brain is like our science, it's our logic, it's our senses, it's rationality, it's linear thinking, and our human notions. And science is great. It is a powerful tool and information knowledge base that is so valuable to us, and science, and so that's our silo there. And then we have this spirituality silo, which is like separate from the real world. Like if you are not fully a believer, you're a disbeliever, you're kind of like an agnostic atheist, you don't buy into that stuff. And that's where I came from, is like all of this stuff I was saying about God and religion, and it just didn't resonate with me, and I couldn't believe it, I couldn't feel it. And so that's all of the metaphysical stuff I had to get to in that process. So and so that kind of magical thinking is our right brain. It's our creativity. It's our creative brain, our right brain. And this philosophy is what is the bridge between our science and spirituality. It's what connects our left brain and our right brain, because philosophy is the use of words to try to explain our human experience, to try to explain what we don't see. Philosophy is metaphysics, in that it's trying to explain the physics behind physics. And it's trying to express the big picture, macro, micro, as above, so below dynamic that is the universe to ourselves. And we can go into a huge thing about philosophy. It's a whole silo of information. But the big picture view here that I want to paint for you guys is, we have been conditioned by school to keep science separate from spirituality and never let them mix. And that's what's missing from our human experience to really feel the richness and aliveness of our passion and of our power and of our abilities and of our connection, our trust, our truth with the universe, with the essential like building blocks of our place in it. And it's not to say that it has to be religion or it has to be a certain thing, but it's that you are creating it yourself. If you don't link science and spirit and your spirituality and you keep them separate, you're not going to feel connection to a purpose on a high level. So now that we've laid that groundwork, now I want to slow down and dive into, I've laid the groundwork, the playground of our imagination as a human, that we have these separate silos and they're not allowed to mix. But now we go down the science path, and all of the information, knowledge, quantum physics, biology, chemistry, all of these things that are real to us and have like a tangibility and are grounding and useful and all of that stuff. And then we have so that silo, and then we have the spirituality silo of metaphysical energy and our creativity and our artistry, artistic things. And each one of those are rabbit holes of information and books and speakers and authorities and fields of knowledge and ancient things, and they all have their rabbit holes. And so what I want to share with you is a synthesis of, I've gone down all these rabbit holes of science, philosophy, and spirituality, but it's all about, okay, bring them all together. What is the essence of it all trying to get to, trying to point to, trying to get you to experience for the point of your liberation, for the point of your freedom, for the point of your multidimensional purpose as a being, as a soul on this planet? What is the point of personal development? To become your best self, to unleash your full potential, to connect and know your purpose, to have a greater mission. These are all my subjective interpretations. What about you? What is the point of personal development? Why do you personally develop? It's evolution. That's what we're tapping into. We're tapping into our evolution. And that is a science term, yeah? But when science is not allowed to blend with spirituality, our evolution takes a halt. And that's where we're at right now. Exactly, Ashley. Freedom in all dimensions of whatever the meaning and the depth of that word means to you. And it's not, and personal development is, that's it. Personal development is not because you're broken. So, if you look at the time gaps between paradigm shifts in our universe, and however you want to paint this yourself, Big Bang, Earth, whatever you want to say, then there's the Earth, and then there's what, dinosaurs. Like, let's take the science side. And again, I'm not espousing to be a scientist that is exact with things. I'm just kind of the ish philosopher. Dinosaurs, millions of years to the neck, then to the next stage where there's fish or mammals start to develop, go to the single-celled organism, the amoeba, just the whole evolutionary journey took millions of years to monkeys that are starting to have the human characteristics, the Homo Oh my God. Excuse me. I don't have a lot of the facts. It's ish. We all know it. We can look it up. We all have our science classes. But the point is, monkeys evolved into humans in the science speak. So what is that? How long did that take? It took millions of years to get to that point. And then from that point, get some common laughs on my ish espousing over here. And then what happened? So we went from monkey to man, and that took thousands of years, hundreds of years, thousands. Just look at that, dinosaurs to that, and now look at like that to human, and then that to technology, and now we're at this point where we are like live with our evolution on what the next stage is, and we're holding it back. We're holding it back as a species because we're not allowing science and spirituality to blend yet. We're not bridging those two silos. They're all separate. They're still separate. One second. I want to help connect the science with the skeptics and all of the purveyors of magic and sacred. It's crazy bizarre to me that all of the secret sex work has connections in other dimensions working on PhD and sex ed. Exactly. Like all of this stuff was ancient knowledge that got suppressed or hidden depending on what conspiracy theory of power struggle that you want to buy into or subscribe to. But the point is, it's all coming to the surface now. We are starting to see it more out in the open. It's no longer hidden. It's no longer hidden mystery school knowledge. People are imbibing it now. There's no more shame in being a magician, in your owning your magic, in being a witch. So yes, actually, I love that, because that's part of my mission as well. Is like, I know my skeptic side and I know how to speak to skeptics, but we need to connect. We need to bridge it with philosophy, and that's why I've developed this UnPhilosophy, because it's not about adding data to your life. It's about subtracting data to your pure essence. That's what I want to get to. Okay. So we've demonstrated the millions of years to hundreds of thousands of years to thousands of years to hundreds of years to tens of years. So just look at technology is fairly new. Like 1950s, 60s, 70s, rocket launch in the 60s, space exploration, 70s, 80s, like look how fast we're going right now with technology because of technology. But it's the humanity that is in the midst of this evolution. We can see the merging with technology in bionic limbs and all of that stuff, but that's a whole other topic in and of itself. But the point I want to make is we are ready for our next leap in evolution, our quantum evolution. Monkey to man, man to Superman, from self-conscious to self-aware to superconscious. And it's all from our self-awareness to know that we are in charge, we are conscious of our own evolution, of how we want to feel, of how we want to be. One second. This passion definitely makes me go fast, and I have to remember, slow down every once in a while. Take a breath. So, we are at this point in our time and space in our species where we are being given tools to evolve ourselves, to decide where we go next, instead of being a part of a tribal consciousness that is controlled by a few in power that is keeping the sheep in control. We're waking up to who we truly are as gods of our own reality. So we're coming back down to the UnPhilosophy. which is my synthesis of what the point of all of this stuff is pointing to. It's all to get to freedom. So how can we make it the most efficient way possible so that we can get to the next step, so that we can get to our own superpowers, so that we can uncover our abilities, and if you're subscribed or part of the spiritual communities, you can already see it's happening. It's happening. Intuitives, psychics, clairsentience, clairaudience, telepathy, being able to know what your friend is doing, the whole sensate thing. The science and the fiction are starting to come together, and that's the funnest place to be. That is where I strive to be, is the cutting edge of consciousness, where science and fiction, where the razor's edge of science and fiction, or reality and make-believe, that's the magic spot. That's where magic is real. And that's where you see it for yourself and where you can prove it to yourself. That's where you can scientifically prove that your faith in yourself, in your God, in whatever way you want to wrap it up. And that's why I call it UnPhilosophy, because it's not about me giving you mine. I can do that all day long, and you might get some value out of it. I can teach all day long, but I don't like calling it teaching. But the point is to get you to invent your own philosophy that works for you. That's where we're at right now, is we no longer have to just subscribe to the ancient texts, or how this guru is doing it, or how this scientist says reality is. We get to create it ourselves. We get to invent it ourselves in what works for you, what empowers you. That's what's important here. So, we're at 27 minutes, so it's perfect timing to finally start diving into the UnPhilosophy. I think I've prefaced and painted enough of the complexity that we're dealing with that I'm trying to really make so simple for you. So simple that you can take it yourself, put it into action, experiment with yourself, and really start to play with your own empowerment, play with your own liberation, play with your own magic, experiment with who you want to be, all of that stuff, all that good, juicy stuff. So, your pace is your pace. I love efficiency. I want to save you time, because time is a currency that, if you're busy, it's in scarcity. Time is money, as you've heard. So I want to share this tool, this thing, this UnPhilosophy, to get you out of your restrictions as fast as possible. But you have your own pace. Your soul has its own journey. And it's completely up to you. But I will just offer how I use this with clients and how I will develop a program that will really put this to the test. I call them theories because, for me, as a skeptic back then, this is how I would have wanted this. This is how I would have wanted the answer. Because that's why you become a seeker, is you're looking for an answer, right? And I am assuming that people that are watching this are seekers to a certain extent, or else you wouldn't be interested in the mechanics of consciousness if you weren't a seeker. So, the way that I feel like this program works the best, if you want to do this yourself, if you want to really take the UnPhilosophy challenge and experiment with it, because it's not about me telling you what the answer is. It's giving you a theory that you test yourself. Does that make sense? So it's this, you are taking your own scientific method and applying it, devising your own experiments, testing and seeing your own results, redoing experiments, trying different angles on the experiment, whatever, to see if you can prove the hypothesis of the theory. That's where I feel personal development is its best. It's not about me just giving you stuff to do. It's about empowering you to take this theory and really imagine on it, really ponder on it, and really test it, and see if it's true for you. And that's where you're going to get your results, because it's your own curiosity. It's your own wonder that lights it up and that finds the nuggets for yourself. So I've designed it as a 21-day experiment. Again, it's totally up to you how you can make it 3 months. You can make it 42 days, whatever. But the way I'm going to explain it is 21 days. 21 days. Where each week you try experimenting with a different theory. So, what is week 1? Week 1 is called the Day 1 Theory. And it's the teaching of timelessness. And the hypothesis being the body in its clearest state is not in time. That's the hypothesis. And the reason why I put this one first, again, you can try it every way you want, but just going to explain the way I do it, is this is 3D. This is the third dimension. This is getting you to your presence. This is the science. 3D, the body, science. And the hypothesis being the body in its clearest state is not in time. So, what does this mean? Like, how do you, like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Nice, Ashley. I'm game. I like that. I'm going to like it right now. Boom. Never mind. Okay. Okay. The Day 1 Theory. Just like sit with that for a second. Day 1 Theory. There is only ever one day. So what does that do? It puts a lot of things into question. And when you experiment with this, you start to dive into, oh, how much time am I carrying in my body? How much time am I carrying? If there's only ever one day, then this thought I just had about rent at the end of the month, what does that say about, does this disprove the theory? Yeah, but the theory is saying that the Day 1 Theory, that there's only ever one day, and that the body in its clear state is not in time. And so you start to dismantle time that you're carrying in your body. And so an example kind of experiment that you can do is ask yourself the question, how much time is contained in this thought? How much time is contained in this thought? and it brings up to the surface like, oh, this regret has like 5 years of time contained in this thought, or this anxiety has 6 months. It's like, I'm worried about this thing, and at the end of the year, you get what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Like, give me some thumbs up if that makes sense, if that resonates. But there's a deeper thing to experiment with here of like, what if this theory was true? What would it mean? And for 7 days, experiment with it. Keep it on your awareness. Keep it on your phone. Have it a reminder. The day one theory. The more that you experiment and focus on the theory, the more that you'll prove it to yourself. The body in its clearest state is not in time. That's the hypothesis. So can you prove the theory right? And once you start to really do the play here, the work, the play, you start to alleviate and lessen the amount of time that you're carrying, and you're actually getting closer and closer to your own presence, free of time. And the more like diligent of like how much time is contained in this thought, or coming up with your own experiment, the more that you'll prove it to yourself, and the more that you'll see the possibilities and the potential of the day one theory of like, one of my other clients was like this, it's like a Groundhog Day kind of attitude of less seriousness about your own identity and the malleability of who you actually are. Because this is about like, again, identity is this time-based thing. You know, it's 30 years or 40 years, 50 years of emotions and thoughts and feelings and experiences that you're carrying in your body. But once you realize the malleability of your identity is not the time, and you start to play with the day one theory and its possibilities and its potential, you start to have a little bit more freedom. You start to feel more present. You're not in your head as much. You're in your body. You're not thinking too much, because thinking is all time. Do you get that? Do you get the fun of this? So you do that for 7 days. And you have realizations, insights, and you're lessening the amount of time. Okay? So, day one theory. And I say in the description here, presence is who we are. This is where we start to entertain slowing down the aging process, allowing greater physical healing, curing pain and suffering, alleviating stress, finding your ideal body form. The transhumanism idea of immortality becomes a little bit more graspable and understandable because you're present. Ultimate realizations could include this more freshness, newness, contentment, joy, rediscovering your innocence, transforming this cynicism of like, you've seen it all before. All your patterns are just, you know what I mean? More vibrant energy, more passion, right? More freedom. But the essence of this, stepping back, is when you read spiritual texts, this is one aspect of what they're pointing to, is timelessness and getting you to experience it instead of intellectualizing about, oh yeah, time doesn't exist, and it's getting you to play with it, to like interact with it, to go from theory to action, theory to experiencing, and experiencing the wealth of gold that is awaiting you taking that step into stepping outside of this rigid identity that you think is you. Okay, 7 days. Day 1 theory, experimenting with that. The next theory, we've gone from finding our presence in 3D, in our body, to the second theory, the blank slate theory, which is the teaching of emptiness. And it's all about mind, philosophy, and 4D. 4D, if you take the physics-based approach, 4D is time, which does resonate with this, but I'm illustrating this on a very kind of intentful level of getting you to discern and start to really grasp the blend that you think is you, and start to disentangle the confusion. So right now, we are very confused between our 3D and 4D kind of identity blend. We think we are our body, we think we are our mind, and they're all conglomerated into this one entity that we think is us, and it's very entangled. But the more that we can experiment with actually seeing, okay, 3D, and then 4D is the mind. Okay, what have I just painted there? That you sense and interact and see your mind, right? But I can't see it. I can't see yours. So thus, it's not in the third dimension. It's in another dimension, which is the fourth dimension. So we're starting to entertain multidimensional understanding by seeing how much we confuse 3D and 4D and starting to disentangle it for ourselves and get to a place that we can see clearly, right? So the body in its clearest state is not in time. Now we're going into our time and space of our mind. And so this is where our philosophy is. So science and philosophy. So the teaching of emptiness, and the hypothesis being the mind's natural state is empty. So we're going from disentangling this rigid identity that we think is our body and our life and our time to entertaining what it's like to be identity-less, to be empty, and not avoiding it, not being scared of it, not trying to fill it automatically, not trying to run away in our addictions, or you get what I mean, right? So it's to see the natural state is empty, not to shame or avoid or be scared of our own darkness, and to think that there's something actually there when we are talking about the mind. The mind is a tool. The mind is not us. So the hypothesis being the mind's natural state is empty. Okay, but I have all these thoughts going on, and when I meditate, it's a jibber jabber, it just doesn't shut up. What are you talking about? The mind's natural state is empty. That doesn't make any sense. Look how full and chaotic and havocy it is. Okay, but for a week, the blank slate theory. So just slow down on that for a second. The mind's natural state is empty. That's the theory. So how do I prove this to myself? How do I prove this to myself? Once you are curious and wonder how to prove the theory to yourself, then you're opening up the experience of it. And that's where the magic of this is. So, and you devise your own experiments. So I'll give you a few of mine. And these are either, okay, so what I've done to like really grasp this time thing is like look at your iPhone, your clock, an analog clock, and just stare at the second hand for a minute or two. And just watch it and see what your conscious awareness and control can slow down or speed it up. And just feel how fast or slow a second and a minute actually is versus when you're not paying attention to time. And so the idea here is like understanding more about time relativity to see how malleable time is. So the two kind of disparate examples I give are like, do you remember the last class in school where you were just like staring at the clock for the bell to ring and it was going so slow? So slow. And you just wanted to get out of there, but it was just like time was moving at a snail's pace and it was just like dragging and you just wanted to leave. Versus those like bright, open summer days where that was expansive and there was so much time, but yet it just flashed by like that, and you had no, and it was just nothing to do with play, but there was a whole different feeling of time. Once you understand time relativity and experiment with, oh, okay, so like I can slow down or speed up my perception of time, then you're watching the thoughts from a different place. You're seeing, again, we've gone from how much time is contained in these thoughts to, oh, the thoughts are just happening on top of a blank slate. And you're experimenting with, so I'm the sky and the thoughts are clouds, and you're creating an extra space or distance of awareness to see the space around the thoughts instead of being immersed in the chaos of all the thoughts. You're creating space for yourself. Does that make sense? So experimenting with this will give you new layers of awareness on your mind and help you not identify as the thoughts, but we've identified more as presence from day one, and now we get to flower that and flourish it and start to see the potential of, oh, it's empty, and I have this 0 point and my presence, and now the mind loses its power over you. You're no longer being swayed by it. You're no longer being held down by it. You're no longer conflicted by the inner war anymore. You're the observer of it. You're the awareness of it. Does that make sense? Experiment with it for the next for the next 7 days of this 21-day thing. So, blank slate theory. Another kind of experiment that I suggest is if you grab a blank sheet of paper and a pen and you sit down and you focus on the blank paper in front of you, but just ponder what is actually happening there, right? Like see what wants to come through on the page, but don't allow it. Say no to any idea, no matter how enticing. Notice this is the blank slate of your mind before the projection of thoughts. The blank space is your natural state of space. And just feel what that feels like, having the potential of the universe in your hand, but not using it. And staying with the blank slate, blank canvas, right? All right, so I've got 10 minutes. I've got 10 minutes to do the last theory, and I will. But I hope you see that we've gone from this presence and a malleability of our identity to not identifying as an identity, but as space, as emptiness, and which ultimate realizations include clarity, calm, peace, tranquility, mental illness healing, alleviating anxiety, curing, alchemy, transformation. All of that stuff comes when you've really come to a blank slate because you find your ultimate choice. Your choice. Your free will is flourished here. Because you're no longer carrying the past and the future with you as certainties. So, what is next? Because we've gone from this, oh man, there is a lot I could say, which is probably going to be the next talk, but you're aware that we're going from this like duality to something. Like we're transcending duality into something. And that is illustrated externally with technology of our computers are evolving or upgrading from binary ones and zeros to quantum computing, which is a whole lot more complex and exists either in the middle of 1 and 0, is both 1 and 0, is neither 1 and 0, is kind of the way it's quantum. But that's what we're doing here. Is like day one theory was all about being the one. Blank slate theory is about being the zero. The quantum self theory, the third theory, which is really the game-changing one. It's the one that I'm standing on the shoulders of Einstein and the theory of relativity, of time relativity, the theory of general relativity, and saying, all right, let's innovate on that. This is next, the quantum self theory. So we're going from 1 and 0 to quantum. We're upgrading our mind into an imagination. We're leaving the cage and liberating ourselves from our shackles and cages of this self-conscious mind to the limitless potential of the infinite imagination. Multidimensional, parallel realities, alternate universes, all of this stuff starts to become graspable now with more processing power. So the quantum self theory, we've gone from body to mind. Quantum self theory is spirit, it's spirituality, and it's what I call 5D, in that we've gone from 3D physical to 4D mind to transcending that dimension and going more into imagination. And again, this is an oversimplification, a distillation, synthesis of what could be very complex. We can get into a lot of different dimensional explanations in physics and spirituality and all that stuff. But for the sake of what the point of this is, which is liberation, which is freedom, this is 5D. This is the fifth dimension. This is where you feel your limitlessness. This is the teaching of limitlessness. So the hypothesis of the quantum self theory is the imagination in its purest state has infinite potential. Pure imagination. That's what is next for us as a species. We're leaving the black and white mind. We're leaving linear time, and we're going into non-linear, multidimensional experience and abilities and powers. And so this is where we start to discern the difference between mind and imagination, and starting to create the singularity between reality and make-believe, between humanity and machine, man and machine, between real and artificial. We are blurring those lines so that we get to a point of oneness, of seeing the game of duality from a higher level, from a higher dimension, because we've liberated ourselves from this linear identity of a self-conscious human being, and we've opened up to our limitless potential through this quantum upgrade, through this quantum evolution, through this quantum leap that allows us to, when we flourish this, when you experiment with this theory on a very real level for yourself, this is where you find empowerment. This is where you find quantum flight. The experience of quantum flight is when your imagination is pure, where all possibilities exist. Everything is possible. And you actually believe it in your 3D, 4D, you funneled infinite potential down into your physical body, and the energy is routed efficiently, which is spoken through your passion. That's when you know that it's aligned. That's when you know you're in alignment, is when you are filled with passion and inspiration and higher level purpose and energy, vibrant energy. And what I said on here, like, this is where the upgrade into all possibilities can finally be grasped. We've left the cage shackles of the mind and have ascended our frequency into the flight of the imagination. Ultimate realizations include abundance, dream life actualization, bliss, ecstasy, freedom, make-believe powers, child's eyes, faith, trust, truth, oneness, genius, play, creator of your reality, and opening up to your innate abilities and gifts and visions that you are supposed to bring down from your imagination into our third dimension planet experience of souls evolving. And this is our school to learn about energy. And this is where your metaphysical and your physical can finally play together, and you are present and empowered and enlightened and balanced and aligned to be your highest potential. And so there is a lot more to dive into for the quantum self theory. That's like, if this was 101, that's 201, and a lot more to dive into. But this UnPhilosophy is a tool to awaken, first of all. So if I can give this tool to an unconscious being, they could use this to awaken efficiently. They can use this to learn about their own conscious evolution, and they can use this as a self-guided tool of self-empowerment, of empowerment. Because it's the essence of what teachers are trying to teach or point to in philosophy and spirituality, and where science is trying to go. And making it all one in your imagination and one energy of passion that will allow us to get to the next level of our evolution as a species and into the future. Interstellar travel, space exploration, all the cool shit. So that was very epic. That was a lot of fun. I have a few minutes until I get this call for any questions. If anyone has any questions, I would be glad to answer. You see, we have a few viewers. And if you post any questions, if you're watching the replay, I'll be glad to answer them. I will answer them. If you are interested in doing a 21-day program with me, I will have one-on-one with that, so you can have like an accountability partner through that 21-day experiment. And then I also do one-on-one coaching over the course of 3 or 6 months. That is really about getting you to the next level of your passion and your life. And so I have a few slots left for that. And other than that, I've always got ideas going. But we'll see where it goes. I'm trying to focus right now. That's really been my thing. But otherwise, if no one has any questions, I'm going to end this right at the 60-minute mark. I'm going to try to like nail it. 60 minutes right on the dot. Because I like even numbers, time,